Liam had always adored his grandmother and all the elegant outfits that she wore. When the old lady finally passed, Liam had been distraught but was given one of her most prized possessions, an antique brooch. As Liam cleaned it one day, he noticed a strange engraving, a cryptic message hinting at its origin. He turned to Jewel, a jeweler, gemologist, and renowned historian. However, as Jewel inspected the brooch, her eyes widened. "I can't believe this. How did this come into your grandmother's possession?" How had it come into his grandmother's possession? Liam had to think. The wounds of her passing still dug deep into his heart. Though as he saw Jewel's shocked face, he knew he had to find out. How she had said it made Liam think it wasn't supposed to be in her possession or now in his. Liam had a stellar memory, remembering things that most would have forgotten. Because of this, he was sure he would discover the truth by looking at his memory. Liam had adored his grandmother ever since he was young. Though the little boy had always favored her, they only became closer after the incident. After a night of babysitting by his late grandmother, Beth, they had heard the most unfortunate news. Looking back, Liam still couldn't believe how it all had happened. He had been lucky enough to stay with his grandmother during that night. If he hadn't, his life would have never been the same. Not only did Liam lose his parents that night, Beth had lost her precious son. Beth only told him what exactly had happened when he had become old enough. However, he still remembered the horrors of that night. He remembered waking up in the middle of the night by a phone ringing. Though only 6 years old, he had heard his grandparents' hushed whispers. He had remembered Grammy Beth crying into his grandfather's arms. She kept saying, "My baby, my beautiful baby." Liam had originally thought it was about him, as she often referenced him as her baby. Though Beth had accepted the hug, it didn't stop her tears. Liam had no idea what had happened back then. Regardless of everything, Grandma Beth and Grandpapa Charles had taken him in without a second thought. Though they would never replace his parents, his grandparents had always been good to him. Sometimes they were a bit strict, but now that Liam was older, he believed that every parent needed to be a little strict. If every parent had been that way, they might have still been alive. When Liam was 14, Grandma Beth finally told him that his parents had died due to a car crash. According to her, it had been a drunk driver hitting their car fatally as the person had gone through a red light. Liam had been distraught by the news, but understood why she had kept it from him when he was younger, especially since the drunk driver had survived without a scratch on him. According to Grandma Beth, he was released from jail after 3 years. She had asked him not to look for him, and he had always held himself to that promise. When thinking about the brooch, his first memory of it seemed to be after the night of the accident. It seemed like the night of his parents' death was the day before the brooch had made its first appearance, though Liam knew he had to be sure of this. Throughout the years, his grandparents had been his stable and frequent babysitters, and as far as he remembered, he had never seen that brooch on her clothing as of before that day. It made Liam's brows furrow. If she started wearing it after his parents' passing, where had she gotten it? He started to focus on the day of the terrible news and the days that came after. He was certain about the fact that she hadn't worn it after she had gotten the news. But he remembered very clearly how the brooch was on her neat black jacket during the funeral. It had suddenly appeared, and he remembered the compliments that she had received for it as well. It worried Liam, and his brows furrowed as he looked at Jewel. "I don't know how she got it, but I know when I first saw it." He swallowed as the trauma regarding his parents' death came rushing in again. He let out a small breath before he continued. "The first time I actively remember her wearing it was during my parents' funeral." Jewel's shocked face changed to a sorrowful one. She put her hand on my shoulder and gave it a slight squeeze. It did seem to work for some reason, as Liam's spirits lifted a little bit. Liam had always been sensitive regarding his parents' death. He had loved living with his grandparents, and it always made him feel a bit guilty toward them. In the end, their passing was needed for Liam to live with Beth and Charles, which always made him feel guilty. Liam was hoping that it would be the first option he gave. It would hurt less if they did so. "We can ask Aunt Mary, and if she doesn't know, maybe Grandpa Charles," Liam said, his brows furrowing. He was hoping that Aunt Mary would know something about the brooch. If he had to go to Grandpa Charles, his heart would break all over again. His grandpa had Alzheimer's disease. Every time he went there, he would have to explain where Grandma Beth was, or he would be mistaken for his late father, James. He was hoping that he didn't have to go to Charles, and that his Aunt Mary would know enough about it. He didn't want to break his grandfather's heart again. Liam's hands clutched the steering wheel as he and Jewel drove towards Aunt Mary's house. The weight of the brooch in his pocket felt like a tangible echo of the past. Outside, autumn leaves danced in the wind, mirroring the swirl of thoughts and questions in Liam's mind. What secrets did the brooch hold? Would Aunt Mary shed light on its mysterious past? The journey was not just through miles, but through memories and uncertainties that awaited answers. Arriving at Aunt Mary's cottage, surrounded by a vibrant garden, they were greeted with warmth and surprise. "What brings you here unexpectedly?" Aunt Mary asked, her eyes reflecting curiosity and affection. The comfort of her presence momentarily eased the gravity of their quest. This visit was more than a family reunion. It was a step into a past filled with shadows and unanswered questions, bound tightly to the brooch's enigmatic history. In Aunt Mary's living room, Liam presented the brooch. "Do you know its origins?" he asked. Aunt Mary, peering at the brooch, recalled, "Beth always wore this, but where it came from, I don't know." Her touch on the brooch was delicate, her expression thoughtful. Liam sensed that the brooch, gleaming under the room's soft light, was a puzzle piece to a larger, hidden story that his grandmother had silently carried. Aunt Mary sighed, reflecting. "Beth never said where she got it. It appeared after the accident a constant companion." Liam's heart sank. He had hoped for a clearer lead, a direct path to the brooch's past. Aunt Mary's inability to provide more details felt like a series of closed doors, leaving the mystery of the brooch resting quietly on the table, still unsolved and enigmatic. Aunt Mary added, "After the accident, Beth changed. She became more secretive. It's as though she bore a hidden, personal sorrow." Liam and Jewel exchanged a look. This revelation added a new dimension to the puzzle, a change in Beth's demeanor, a depth to her that Liam never knew. The brooch, now a silent emblem on the table, symbolized this undisclosed facet of his grandmother's life, a piece of a history yet to be fully understood. Sitting in Aunt Mary's garden, Liam and Jewel contemplated their next move. "We need to see Grandpa Charles," Jewel suggested gently. Liam hesitated, the weight of past visits heavy on his heart. Yet he knew it was the only way forward. "You're right," he conceded, his voice tinged with a mixture of resolve and apprehension. The journey to Grandpa Charles was not just a physical one. It was a path back into a past filled with both love and sorrow. At Grandpa Charles's home, a sense of nostalgia enveloped Liam as they entered. Charles looked up, his eyes briefly brightening. "James, you've come back!" he exclaimed, mistaking Liam for his late father. Liam's heart clenched at the mention of his father's name, a painful reminder of the cruel trick memory plays in Alzheimer's. Jewel placed a comforting hand on Liam's back, silent support as he prepared to correct his grandfather once again. "Grandpa, it's me, Liam," he said softly, the familiar ache of repeating this reality settling in his chest. Charles' expression shifted from joy to confusion, then to a profound sadness as realization dawned. "Oh, Liam," he murmured, "I keep forgetting." Liam fought back tears, feeling the pain of reopening old wounds for both of them. Each visit was a reminder of the relentless toll of Alzheimer's, eroding precious memories and leaving behind a poignant mixture of recognition and loss. As they settled into a quiet conversation, Charles began to reminisce about Beth. She was so strong after the accident, but always carried a hint of sadness, he reflected. His eyes, clouded by age, seemed to look back through the years. Liam listened, hoping for any mention of the brooch, but Charles's memories meandered, painting a portrait of Beth as a pillar of strength, tinged with an undercurrent of unspoken grief and complexity. In a rare moment of clarity, Charles looked at Liam with recognition. "You've grown into a fine man, just like your father," he said, his voice tinged with pride and loss. Liam grasped his grandfather's hand, feeling the generational link between them. It was a moment of connection, transcending the barriers of memory and time, a shared understanding of love and loss. In this fleeting moment, they were just a grandson and grandfather, bound by family and heart. During their conversation, Grandpa Charles' eyes sharpened, a clear light shining through the usual haze of confusion. "You know, there are moments when everything seems so clear," he said, his voice steady and sure. Liam and Jewel exchanged a glance, recognizing this rare moment of lucidity. Charles sat up straighter, as if the fog of Alzheimer's had temporarily lifted, allowing him a brief return to the world as it used to be, filled with sharp edges and vivid memories. Charles' gaze turned distant, as if he was peering into a long-forgotten past. "After the accident, a man came. He was so apologetic," he murmured. Liam leaned forward, his interest piqued. Who was this man? What did he apologize for? The mention of a visitor, previously unknown to Liam, added another layer to the unfolding mystery. Charles seemed to struggle to piece together the fragments of this old memory, his brow furrowed in concentration. Trying to delve deeper into the memory, Charles squinted, his mind grappling with the elusive past. "He was remorseful. I can't remember his face or why he was so sorry," he said, frustration evident in his voice. The clarity was slipping away like sand through fingers, leaving behind only fragments of a potentially crucial memory. Liam felt a surge of hope and frustration simultaneously. Here was a clue, yet it was as nebulous as mist. Liam sat back, his mind racing with the new information. A mysterious visitor, an apology linked to the accident. What did it all mean? This revelation opened up more questions than it answered. Who was this man, and what was his connection to their family? Why had he visited Grandpa Charles? Liam's thoughts were a whirlpool, each new piece of information stirring the waters further, creating ripples that seemed to extend in countless unknown directions. As they left Grandpa Charles' house, Liam felt a complex mix of emotions. The visit had unearthed a tantalizing clue, but it was shrouded in ambiguity. Jewel, sensing his inner turmoil, squeezed his hand supportively. "We'll figure this out," she said, her voice a blend of determination and comfort. Liam nodded, the weight of unsolved mysteries heavy on his shoulders. The drive home was quiet, both lost in thought, pondering the significance of the apologetic visitor and what it meant for their quest. Back at his grandmother's house, Liam delved into old boxes filled with memories. Amidst the clutter of keepsakes, he found an old photograph, its edges worn with time. The image was a window into the past, capturing a moment forever frozen. Liam's hands trembled slightly as he held it, feeling a connection across time. This photo, hidden away in the depths of forgotten belongings, might hold a key to the mysteries that had long eluded him. The photograph showed Beth, younger but unmistakably her, adorned with the brooch. Beside her stood a man Liam didn't recognize. His posture suggested familiarity, an ease around Beth that piqued Liam's curiosity. The brooch gleamed even in the black and white photo, a silent testament to its enduring presence in their family history. Who was this man, and what role had he played in Beth's life? The photo seemed to beckon Liam closer to the truth. Turning the photograph over, Liam noticed handwriting on the back. A name, Mr. Henderson. The script was elegant, and the ink faded but still legible. This name, previously unknown to Liam, was a tantalizing clue. Who was Mr. Henderson, and what was his connection to the brooch and to Beth? Liam felt as if each discovery was a piece of a larger puzzle, and Mr. Henderson's name was the latest piece to fall into place. Liam and Jewel sat, the photograph between them, immersed in a sea of speculation. Could Henderson be a friend? A lover, perhaps? Jewel pondered. Liam considered this, the possibilities multiplying in his mind. The man's presence in the photo with Beth, coupled with the mystery of the brooch, suggested a significant connection. Each theory led to more questions, the answers to which seemed to lie just beyond their reach in the shadowy realm of the past. Determined, Liam decided it was time to pursue this new lead. "We need to find Mr. Henderson," he declared, a newfound resolve in his voice. Jewel nodded in agreement, her expression mirroring Liam's determination. If Mr. Henderson was still around, he might hold the key to unraveling the mystery of the brooch. Their quest was evolving, leading them down unexpected paths, each turn revealing new facets of a story that spanned generations and concealed deep-seated secrets. With the name Mr. Henderson as their only clue, Liam began his search, diving into the depths of his grandmother's past. He scoured through old address books, sifted through letters, and made calls to anyone who might have known Beth well. Each step felt like navigating a labyrinth, where every turn could lead to a breakthrough or a dead end. The pursuit for answers was both daunting and invigorating, as Liam knew that each effort brought him closer to unraveling the mystery. Liam and Jewel tirelessly followed leads from Beth's past, contacting old friends and distant relatives. Each conversation was a thread, weaving a tapestry of Beth's life and the people in it. They pieced together anecdotes, sifting through memories shared by those who had known her. This journey through Beth's connections was like assembling a puzzle, with each piece offering a glimpse into her world and potentially bringing them closer to the elusive Mr. Henderson. Their persistence began to bear fruit as they neared the truth about Mr. Henderson's whereabouts. A breakthrough came when an old friend of Beth's recalled a Mr. Henderson from her past. This information was a beacon in their search, illuminating the path forward. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly coming together, each revelation adding to the growing picture of Beth's life and the mysterious brooch history. As they drew closer to meeting Mr. Henderson, a mixture of anticipation and anxiety took hold of Liam. What would Mr. Henderson reveal about the brooch? Would he provide the answers they sought or lead them to more questions? The prospect of finally confronting a key figure in this mystery brought a rush of conflicting emotion. Excitement for potential revelations was tempered by the fear of uncovering uncomfortable truths. Their search culminated in locating Mr. Henderson, an elderly man whose life was a tapestry of stories and experiences. Finding him felt like reaching the end of a long and winding journey, yet it was also just the beginning of unraveling the deeper narrative. Mr. Henderson's connection to Beth, to the brooch, and to the untold stories of the past held the potential to shed light on the secrets that had been shrouded in mystery for so long. Liam and Jewel sat across from Mr. Henderson, an air of anticipation hanging in the room. They delved into conversations about Beth, with Mr. Henderson recalling the past vividly. His stories painted a picture of Beth in younger days, providing glimpses into her life and character. Liam listened intently, hoping for clues, while Jewel interjected with questions, guiding the conversation toward the brooch and its origins, seeking to unravel the mystery that had brought them here. As Mr. Henderson reminisced, his face softened with fond memories. He spoke of Beth with affection, recalling shared moments and laughter. However, when the topic shifted to the brooch, his demeanor changed. He became more evasive, skirting around direct answers. While he acknowledged the brooch's existence and its presence in Beth's life, he offered little insight into its origins or significance, much to Liam's and Jewel's growing frustration. Mr. Henderson's cryptic comments added to the brooch's enigmatic aura. He hinted at its mysterious nature, suggesting it held more significance than just an ornamental piece. "There's more to that brooch than meets the eye," he mused, his eyes reflecting a knowingness that he didn't elaborate on. This vague hint tantalized Liam and Jewel, suggesting depths and secrets yet to be uncovered, yet Mr. Henderson remained tight-lipped about the details. As the meeting with Mr. Henderson drew to a close, Liam felt a tide of frustration washing over him. They were no closer to understanding the brooch history or its significance in Beth's life. Mr. Henderson, who seemed to be a promising link to the past, had only deepened the mystery with his evasiveness. Liam's hopes of finding clear answers had led them to what felt like a dead end, leaving him grappling with uncertainty and unresolved questions. Liam and Jewel left Mr. Henderson's place with mixed emotions. The drive back was filled with contemplative silence, each lost in thought. "What do we do now?" Jewel finally asked, breaking the silence. Liam sighed, feeling the weight of their unfruitful quest. Despite the setbacks, he wasn't ready to give up. The mystery of the brooch, intertwined with his family's past, compelled him to keep searching. In a moment of quiet reflection, Liam made a decision. He would look into the drunk driver involved in his parents' accident, a path Grandma Beth had cautioned him against. This decision felt like crossing an invisible line, delving into a part of the past shrouded in pain and taboo. Yet Liam felt compelled by an unseen force, a need for answers that outweighed his trepidation. It was a step back into a dark chapter of his family's history. Liam and Jewel began their research into the accident. They combed through old newspapers, police reports, and court records, piecing together the events of that fateful night. The more they uncovered, the more real it became, a tragedy encapsulated in paper and ink. Each document brought them closer to understanding the incident that had reshaped their lives. The driver, once just a shadowy figure in Liam's past, started to take on a more concrete form. As they delved deeper, Liam found himself confronting emotions he had long buried: anger, grief, and a haunting sense of what might have been surfaced with each new discovery. Their persistence paid off when they finally located the current whereabouts of the drunk driver. This information was a significant breakthrough, turning a page in their search for the truth. The reality of coming face to face with this person was both daunting and necessary. For Liam, it was a chance to confront the past directly, to ask questions that had haunted him, and perhaps to find a piece of the puzzle that was still missing. Liam steeled himself for the upcoming confrontation. Meeting the driver was a step he never imagined taking, yet it felt essential now. He was not just seeking answers about the brooch, he was confronting a part of his past that had defined much of his life. With Jewel's supportive presence, he prepared mentally and emotionally for this encounter. It was a meeting that held the potential for revelations, closure, or perhaps new beginnings. Liam, delving into the post-accident life of the driver, discovered surprising details. The man had seemingly turned his life around after serving time. Public records and news articles painted a picture of transformation and penance. This revelation stirred a complex mix of emotions in Liam. The driver, once a symbol of tragedy in his family's life, now emerged as a figure of remorse and change. It was a narrative Liam hadn't anticipated, complicating his feelings of anger and loss. Further research revealed that the driver had dedicated his life to helping others avoid his mistakes. He lived modestly, was involved in community outreach, and spoke at events about the dangers of drunk driving. This information painted a picture of a man profoundly changed by his past actions. For Liam, this posed a moral quandary. The man responsible for so much pain in his life had seemingly transformed into a force for good. With resolve, Liam reached out to the driver. The phone call was fraught with tension. The driver's voice, hesitant on the other end, conveyed a sense of apprehension. After Liam explained his connection to the accident, there was a pause, a moment of heavy silence before the driver agreed to meet. It was a reluctant agreement, tinged with a sense of inevitability. For both men, this meeting promised to be a confrontation with a shared, painful past. In the days leading up to the meeting, Liam wrestled with a storm of emotions. Anxiety, anger, and a desperate need for closure swirled within him. He prepared himself mentally, rehearsing what he wanted to say and the questions he needed answers to. Jewel provided a steady presence, offering support and understanding. The anticipation of the meeting hung over Liam like a cloud, a mix of dread and an intense desire for some form of resolution. The day arrived, with a heavy weight of significance. Liam, accompanied by Jewel, drove to the meeting place, his heart pounding with each mile they covered. The reality of coming face to face with the man indirectly responsible for altering the course of his life loomed large. As they parked and approached the meeting spot, Liam felt time slow down, each step heavy with the gravity of the moment. This meeting was a threshold, beyond which lay answers and untold truths. The meeting began with palpable tension. The driver, initially guarded, became visibly shaken upon seeing the brooch in Liam's possession. It seemed to act as a key, unlocking a flood of emotions and memories. He began to speak, his voice quivering, revealing a depth of feeling that Liam hadn't expected. The conversation, initially tense, gradually transformed into a more open exchange as the driver confronted the ghosts of his past in the presence of the brooch. The driver revealed that the brooch had been a cherished family heirloom passed down through generation. In a moment of deep remorse following the accident, he had given it to Beth as a symbol of his guilt and regret. This confession cast the brooch in a new light for Liam. It was not just a piece of jewelry, it was a tangible manifestation of regret, a silent witness to a moment of profound sorrow and contrition. As the driver spoke, his voice laden with emotion, he expressed a lifetime of remorse. He shared his journey since the accident, including his commitment to sobriety and efforts to make amends. His words painted a picture of a man haunted by his actions, living each day with the heavy burden of guilt. Liam listened, the driver's remorse echoing his own family's grief, creating a complex tapestry of shared pain and regret. Liam came to see the brooch in a new light. It was no longer just a mysterious heirloom. It was a symbol of the driver's sorrow, a physical manifestation of his regret. The brooch journey from a cherished family possession to a token of remorse mirrored the tragic intertwining of Liam's and the driver's lives. It stood as a silent testament to the consequences of actions and the enduring nature of grief and guilt. In the aftermath of the driver's revelations, Liam found himself grappling with a tumult of emotions. Understanding and empathy began to seep through the cracks of his long-held anger and resentment. The complexities of the situation, the intertwining of pain and remorse, offered no easy resolution, but they did provide a broader perspective. Liam began to see the brooch and the driver not just as symbols of loss, but also as reminders of the human capacity for error and the possibility of redemption. The driver disclosed another layer of the brooch's past. It had been stolen from a wealthy family generations ago. This revelation added a new dimension to its history, transforming it from a mere family heirloom into a relic of a more complex and shadowed past. For Liam, this information wove the brooch into a broader tapestry of history, where the lines between right and wrong, possession and loss, were blurred and intertwined with the fates of multiple families. The driver explained that the engraving on the brooch was a crest belonging to the wealthy family from whom it was originally stolen. This crest linked the brooch to a lineage of prominence and prestige, further deepening its historical significance. For Liam, this new information painted the brooch not just as a personal family artifact, but as a piece of history, carrying with it the stories and legacies of those who had once possessed it. Liam reflected on how Beth must have grappled with the brooch's complex history. She had kept it close, perhaps as a reminder of the accident's impact, yet she must have been aware of its contentious origins. Liam realized that Beth had silently borne the weight of this knowledge, wrestling with the moral ambiguities it presented. The brooch thus symbolized not just guilt and remorse, but also the silent struggles and unspoken burdens carried by his grandmother. Contemplating the brooch, Liam began to see it as a symbol of reconciliation and healing. It had journeyed through hands marked by guilt, loss, and redemption. The brooch story was a testament to the complex nature of forgiveness, a journey through pain, understanding, and eventually, perhaps, acceptance. Liam pondered the interwoven paths of those affected by the brooch, reflecting on the profound and often complicated process of forgiving and being forgiven. In the end, Liam chose to keep the brooch, It had become a symbol of his family's history, a tangible link to the past with all its complexities and intricacies. The brooch, with its layers of meaning, from a family heirloom to a token of remorse, from a stolen object to a symbol of forgiveness, would serve as a constant reminder of human fallibility and the redemptive power of forgiveness. In embracing the brooch, Liam embraced its entire legacy, accepting it as a part of his own story.